All right, there we go. Facebook immediately in here. You must have clicked it. It's that's good to see. Appreciate everyone. Happy Victory Monday. I am Nick Kendall. I am in the same location. I'm not being held hostage in a weird room. It's just we got the move coming up here in about 10 days, something like that. So just trying to get as much cleaned up and good to go as possible. And yeah, no, Eric, how are you doing? I know it was an ugly win, but if you remember, as we closed out Wednesday's show, I didn't want people to overreact too much to an ugly win because it's the freaking NFL. And sometimes, I mean, how many games last season did the Chiefs win ugly? And they did that all the way until getting their, what's waxed in the Super Bowl. But still, a win is a win is a win. We'll nitpick now, but overall, very happy to be sitting here 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. I talked about it on Friday night that last year they handled business. They beat the teams that they needed to beat. This was a team they needed to beat, that they were expected to beat. They handled business. Wasn't great, wasn't pretty. We're going to nitpick it. We're going to break down the ugly stuff of it, and we're going to break down the good stuff from it. And it's just one of those things that by the time the season ends, everyone will have forgotten how they beat the Titans. It'll just be remembered that they did beat the Titans.
Yeah, I think we'll remember that it didn't leave us feeling overly excited. I think it would come back to, I think I talked about it Wednesday as well, that 2015, 2013 game versus the Jags where Denver was only up like 10 at halftime or something, and they were literally getting booed. And I know that Denver was like one of the biggest spreads we've seen in a decade. There was a horrible Jags team, and that Broncos team was just beating the you-know-what out of everybody. But this isn't college football. Denver's not going to move down the playoff rankings because the committee thinks, oh, they should have beaten the Titans by more. It's going to show 1-0 in the column. Now, at the end of the year, will it hurt some of the like advanced stats stuff? Like last season, Denver really beat up on the teams they were supposed to beat often, and that's why their record in one-score games was so good, right? Like, or not one-score games, record in multi-score games was so good. And that's often an indicator of a team that's like pretty darn good overall. This is going to be a one-score game. They went in 20-12, 20-13, excuse me. Was it 20-12? Is that wrong? I think it was 20-12. I digress.
I think 2012, I fat fingered the 3.
Okay, I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't think it was 20-13. But either way, one-score game, and don't feel the best about it. But what I do feel good about is everybody in the chat coming in, saying good morning. Hello to everybody. We got David Youngkin in the house. Great to have a dominant defense. 6 sacks, 151 rushing yards. Questionable play calling. Whoever said Super Bowl ready is smoking crack. You never know, man. It is just one game. They got a lot to work on. Was it the best performance from Sean Payton, Bo Nix in the offense? Absolutely not. But Denver did get the win, and a win inches you that much closer. So we'll find out. It's just one game, but it's a game that, as you said, Eric, Denver needed to win. A step along the path, if you will. Gatorade Gaming, good morning, Nick and Eric. What's good, Broncos country? Would be good if you joined us in the membership here. Make sure you guys are becoming a Mile High Huddle member on the YouTube side of things. We really do appreciate that. Had to give you a hard time, Gatorade Gaming. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you. Kanga, anyone want to reverse their win-loss predictions after yesterday's performance? I had them at, I think, 11-7. That's too many games. 11-6 to start the season. I'm going to keep it 11-6, but I definitely feel like maybe that's on the high end of it. I was like, if I saw that again, I'd be like, oh, maybe 10-7, but I'm going to stick to 11-6 still. Again, one game. If they, go to Indy and struggle, or if they get, blown out by the Eagles, maybe. But I'm going to stick to my guns for now with 11 wins.
Yeah, I'm sticking with 13-4. I mean, that was the higher end. I believe I had talked on one of the shows about 11-6 to 13-4. But last year they started 0-2. Like, it's all. Sometimes you don't get the the full picture in the first week or two, especially now after teams are with the one less preseason game. A lot of people don't realize that the best offense after week 1 last year was the Saints, and they ended up being one of the worst teams in the NFL last year and one of the worst offenses looking for a quarterback. But they started off hot. So I'm sticking with it. I think that, some of the issues that we'll talk about with this game, I'm sure a good portion of them will get figured out and get handled or covered up or, had that Band-Aid put on it. But whatever the case, I don't think we see as ugly of a performance as we did against the Titans, in week 10, week 12. And so I think that things will get worked out. I'm not changing it. If they struggle against the Colts, maybe, but the Colts, they absolutely whipped on the Miami Dolphins, so maybe they're a little bit of a better team than we think.
Yeah, we'll have time to talk about that as well. I am always a little bit skeptical of the one game sample size.
Yeah.
Right? Like some days it's just like they didn't show up and they didn't earn it. So we will see. We will see for sure. Jason comes in and says, Bo seemed to be pressing too much, trying to carry the load, especially in the first half. Getting the run game going earlier will help a lot. Confident Bo will play better next week. It's going to be hard for him to play worse. This was that was a really ugly performance from Bo Nix. Now, he did have some good throws in there, but I agree with Jason. It did feel like he was pressing. It's one of the big complaints I had about Bo Nix coming out of college. And I don't know. You do love to have the off-platform trick shots in your back pocket, but it's no basis for your entire arsenal of quarterback play. And it just felt like if you have to put it in that moment, the off-platform, throwing it opposite shoulder, flipping around every once in a while, that's great. But it felt like way too often he was muddy in his platform. The shoulder is off kilter. When it was unnecessary. Like I hate the guy. I hate the guy, but I respect the heck out of him. Tom Brady, and it's not fair to compare anybody to Tom Brady, but no matter how much chaos was in the pocket, Tom Brady was square and his feet were quiet and he was always in that repeatable delivery. And because of that, he was accurate and he was on time. And again, that's beyond like a PhD level. Like that's the guy who wrote the book, essentially, him and Peyton. I'm not asking for that yet. That should be the goal. But right now, there's just way too much unforced pushing the ball. Some of the decisions too in this one. I'm not even talking about the decision, but it's just the mechanics. They're slopping, and it's good to have that every once in a while. You want to have that in your back pocket, but it cannot be 50% of your throws. You need it to be like 10 to 20. And I felt like it was just way, way too often. And the accuracy struggled. Some of the ball place, the velocity on like the tossing it up, lobbing it up struggled. It just wasn't good enough and forcing. So just back to basics. Didn't feel like a robot, like when you watch Breeze or Brady operate, which is what you want, the flair, but you also need the consistency.
Yeah, it was like he tried to force improvement over last year a little bit too much, and then especially in areas where he did well last year, took a step back because he's trying to force to improve in other areas, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't pretty. He had 2 interceptions and probably should have had 2 or 3 more just with some of the decision making he had. His placement was all over the place, and it all stems from the base. Our good friend, when I've had him on Dev Valley Divers, Luke Poglace, he's always talked about midfoot force, about making sure you're having that proper base when your lower half is pointed correctly and set, because of how much that can not only help you drive the ball and add velocity to it, but how it helps your placement. And that was all over the place with Nix. He may have had, let's see, he threw the ball 37, 38 times.
40,
He probably had
40.
less than 10 of those plays where he actually had a good base, good mechanics, good and just good set or being set well. And it really showed in his play. And it's one of those things where, all right, Davis Webb, Sean Payton, you need to pull him aside and be like, chillax a little bit, calm down in the pocket. His pressure gauge was off as well. So maybe, have a little bit of a conversation with him about that. But it's definitely a step of, if this is I'm not saying we will get this Bo Nix for the rest of the season. I do expect him to, correct some of this at the very least. But if this is the Bo Nix we get, then maybe I'm not feeling too confident about 13-4, because that isn't the level of quarterback play you need to get to that kind of record.
Looked like a rookie in that one. And it's week 1. Again, we saw a lot of good stuff from him last season. So don't take it as us saying Bo Nix is not good or this is exactly who he's going to be. But we can be real with the performance against the Titans. It was not very good. Now, the Titans, they were one of the best defenses in yards last season, but they were freaking horrible in points. And you know how it's really good to be good in yards when your quarterback is coughing up the football and the other team only has to go 30 yards. So like, I think that's a mirage statistic.
Mhm.
They were something like 26th in DVOA and 24th in EPA. It's not a great defense. Now, two good defensive tackles. Jeffrey Simmons had a very good game. Sweat as well on that fourth down stuff. I mean, that's a good run stuffing defensive line. Maybe not so much the linebackers, Cody Barton. Good to see you out there. But we got Michael coming in saying, "Good morning, Nick and Eric on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Great to see you, Michael. Happy Victory Monday to you as well. 1-0, baby. There was a time when we were talking about Denver winning, 3 to 5 games, the number 1 overall pick not too long ago. So now we can't be, it's in a much better spot, and it's good to be critical and have expectations. We got Troy coming to says sample of class of 1. Glad could be okay. We got the kinks out in game 1, or it could be that our offense is bad. I'm assuming the first. Hey, looks like we got our punter. Thank you for bringing that up. We have definitely. I was railing against Crawshaw because I mean, if he had a bad punt in this game, it could have been over. I mean, because we were playing with fire a lot. Defense bailed us out, but Crawshaw, Lutz, and the defense, they all get game balls from me. I'm not sure I give it to anybody on offense right now. I'd have to go back and watch the individual offensive line plays. It felt like Bowles had a good game, but I'd have to go back and watch. Hard to do that in the moment and really focus on an offensive lineman. Gary Fire, great to see you, Gary. We got Quentin in the house. Good morning, everyone. It's first of the week and we won. Just be happy about that. Am happy. String guy. Remember how Denver started last season? It's how they finished. That definitely matters. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming in and saying hello. Rob Bucksbaum in the house. Good to see you. Can't stay, but glad the football's back. Well, we're glad you're here. And JR said, I guess Glass Leg Ingram is out for a while. Have you heard any updates on that? I've heard the expectation is he's going to be out week 2, but I haven't heard anything beyond that.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything beyond, that he most likely won't be playing next week, but I believe I saw somebody say that the expectation is for him to be back in week 3.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it stinks, especially when your options are Kroll and Troutman at tight end, but maybe you see Harvey a little bit more involved in the pass game because of that. Maybe you see Pat Bryant involved. So we'll see. Things will change. Joshua, good to see a safety and secondary leading the way in tackles is a problem. Oh, man, I don't know. I feel like it is on the surface, but I felt like the defense played really pretty well overall. I don't have many complaints. I mean, is there a few times the defensive tackles, got pushed back? I felt like they really flexed in the second half overall as a unit. I think Wazarike had a solid game in the second half. I thought Eric, considering, 5th, 6th defensive tackle, and the edges were awesome as well. Hafanga was incredible. They didn't even throw the ball at Pat Bryant, I don't think, or Calvin Ridley didn't even catch anything. Thank you, Alligator Arms Ridley. Horrible. Feel bad for Cam Ward. I felt like his dad watching it a little bit, just like, oh my God, these pass catchers are freaking horrible. But overall, I don't know, man. I pretty happy with the defense. I mean, it's hard not to be. Am I ready to, crown them as the 2015 defense? No. Titans were horrible last season. The offensive line was dreadful. Cam Ward's first game on the road. I think Cam Ward is legit. He looked like he belonged. I know the stat line's not good. People on Twitter were like, Nick, what are you talking about? He was horrible. I'm like, eye test said he looked like he freaking belonged. He made some pretty good plays. It's not his fault that Calvin Ridley has, I don't know, stumps for hands. But no, I thought he looked pretty good. The defense, hats off, man. They win the game because of them.
Yeah, I mean, on Cam Ward, it's not helped when you have, I think, 5 or 6 drops by my count watching it live from your receivers, and like 3 or 4 of them from Calvin Ridley alone. There's some things that Cam Ward has to work on. Obviously, some of those seam shots were a little bit too much on it, but he does look legit, and it's obviously, we'll see where he goes from here. As for the defense, I think there was a lot of questionable personnel packages, I would say, with the defensive front in particular. It's typically never a good idea to have none of your, top 4 defensive linemen, defensive front guys out there on the field at the same time. And in the first half, Vance Joseph had a lot of that. It was DJ Jones, Jordan Jackson, Uwazurike, Tillman, and Ellis. And it's funny because on the drive where Hufanga forced the fumble, they were Titans were moving the ball, and that was the defensive line. It was Jones, Uwazurike, and Jackson, and they just could not do anything to stop the run. They couldn't do anything to get after the quarterback. They just weren't doing anything. And then Zach Allen comes in, John Frankenmeyer's come in. They hold up the offensive line at the point of attack. They stall Tony Pollard, and Hufanga comes downhill, forces the fumble, and Brandon Jones recovers it. You typically want one of those guys out there and rotate one at a time, not both, especially if you're doing the same thing with your edges. At least with the edges, though, you can overcome it because Jonah Ellis was phenomenal against the Titans. He's really, carrying over the great preseason he had into the regular season. And so defensively overall, it was a great game overall from the defense, especially with the secondary. Linebackers, Alex Singleton in particular was rough. Still fine against the run between the tackles, but outside of that, it's a little bit rough. Justin Strnad had an absolute monster of a game as well. Going to go very under the radar with how good he had. But if I'm going to nitpick anything with this defense and really point out something, it's going to be the personnel groupings and how the members of those personnel groupings played. Uwazurike had a couple plays in the second half, but overall it wasn't a good game. DJ Jones made a couple plays here and there throughout the game, but it wasn't great. And Jordan Jackson, man, he looks worse than Jonathan Harris ever did. Jonathan Harris was like 100 times upgrade, and both you and I have railed on Jonathan Harris in the past. So good game defense. They saved the day. We win because of it. Offense managed to make just enough plays to pull it out, but special teams and defense, certain members on defense get the game ball for sure.
Yeah, maybe not Marvin Mims. God, muff punt, but couldn't believe when that happened. Jake, good to see you. Appreciate James says, I feel like Peyton was trying to make his proclamation of Bo being a top 5 quarterback come true. Like this was a showcase instead of actual executing. I think it was a lot of respect for Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons and the mass that the Titans have on the defensive front, and not a lot of respect for the back seven and thinking they could pepper the ball down the field. And in theory, I mean, that's what I talked about on Wednesday, thinking that they would try to do. I don't think it was anything of trying to make Bo Nix look great. Also, it could have been a little bit of the defense is playing so good. We really need to work on a lot of things with these weapons and Bo Nix and get him confident for the rest of the season. So let's ramp him up a bit. I don't know as much about him trying to show that Bo Nix being a top 5 quarterback, and I think we can put that that conversation to bed at least after week 1, because that was not close to a top 5 quarterback performance. That was the 22nd in the league kind of quarterback play, which not good enough. And again, one game, it'll fluctuate. You want to think about the trend, and that takes multiple data points to think about the trend. But also, I don't know if you watched the game last night, Eric. It's not necessarily fair to compare Bo Nix to Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, but at the same time, if we're talking Super Bowl as expectation, you are comparing him to those guys, right? And as good as I like the defense, Ravens have a good defense. They gave up, 41 points, right? Like you're going to have to be able to put up points and go toe to toe with some of these quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, I mean, God, that Friday night game, he was freaking awesome. I don't know if we're there yet. So it's, again, we come back to, we got to stay healthy. Quarterback has to take a step forward. Bo Nix is good enough as a rookie contract quarterback. I don't know if the team itself around him is laden with superstars that kind of quarterback can get it done to win the Super Bowl. But again, one game. What we saw versus Titans, not good enough. Not who I expect Bo Nix to be the entire season.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it was Sean Payton trying to show off and prove himself right with Bo Nix, but the play calling suggests that was the case. I mean, when you start the game the way they did, and you talked about it last week, the issues with the run game, the rushing defense, and especially in the defensive front, with Sweat, Simmons, and the very underrated Sebastian Joseph Day against the run, who he had some really great plays for them as well. Like, it's understandable, but it still doesn't excuse calling, 15 passes to 3 runs in your first 18 plays. Or I think it was 22 passes to 4 runs. They didn't try to get a run game going until late. They just completely ignored it. And that's an issue that I have with Sean Payton as a play caller. Do I really think that was him trying to showcase Bo Nix? Not really. I think it was him understanding that they have some concerns about the run game and the Titans defensive front, and they just didn't want to expose it. Whereas I was feeling last week that Sean Payton would take this game and, basically do the opposite, try to get the run game going and get the weaknesses ironed out, and then, target the secondary, the weak secondary and the weak coverage that the Titans have, and do that to make sure they can walk out with the win. Kind of the opposite of what they actually did. So don't think it was Sean Payton trying to showcase, Bo Nix and prove himself right there, but the play calling can definitely suggest that it was.
Crazy. Well, it'll be curious to see what Denver does next week against the Indianapolis Colts. And I don't know what the spread is yet, but I wonder if some people think Denver is an underdog in this upcoming game, considering on the road and how they looked offensively. But we do love an underdog, Eric. Not this week, maybe, because Denver was the biggest favorite in the league, and they didn't cover. But we do love ourselves an underdog.
Yeah, speaking of Underdog, football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and so much more.
That's right. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. So if you think you've got a beat on what Bo Nix or any Broncos player is going to do week 2 or tonight's game, we got NFC North, the Vikings versus the Bears. Download Underdog and win some money.
Yeah, I have so much fun playing Underdog and winning money while watching football. That's a touchdown, you guys. Download the app today and sign up with promo code MHuddle to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code MHuddle. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Yeah, make sure you guys are following them. We got the great one coming in $4.99 saying 40 passes is ridiculous. Sean is trying to pad both stats, and it made things 10 times harder than it should have been. Run the ball. I can't tell if Eric's frozen or if that's just how his face looks. You there, Eric? Oh, there he is. Okay. You were off in space, it looked like to me. But yeah, I think this is the difference between an offensive coach and a defensive coach somewhat. You have Sean Payton being the aggressor and really trying to take advantage of the Titans and where they're weak and avoid where the Broncos are weak. Right now, I mean, we've said it all season. It was pretty obvious in this game. Left guard and center, not very good, specifically in run blocking. The Titans' strength of the defense, their defensive tackles. So if you're running the football, you're almost, I know you have to keep it balanced, but I wonder if to Sean Payton, it almost feels like you're seceding a down. Right, you're just doing it. You're burning it down. You're wasting it because Wattenberg, Powers, not doing very good against Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. And obviously, late enough, you have to keep it balanced. Hopefully, Sean will do that a little bit more. Maybe some trickery, getting Mims involved in the run game, some sweeps. I don't know, but really heavy on the RPOs in this one. Maybe I'm giving Sean a little bit too much credit. I feel like it's so important to win football games in the NFL. I don't think Sean's going to do something detrimental or something as silly as simply trying to pad stats, but you never know. The Colts run defensive tackles, not going to be as good as what we saw in this game. So Denver hopefully will run the ball a little bit more, and great to see RJ Harvey with an explosive run. Haven't seen many of those around these parts in a long time. So that was awesome to see.
Yeah, it was the longest run by a Bronco since November of 2022. His 50-yard run for that. And with the run game, like it's tough because all three of the interior guys really stunk this game. Even Quinn Miners was bad. He was struggling, and that kind of speaks to the strength of the Titans, defensive front. Sebastian Joseph Day, he whipped Quinn Miners. Jeffrey Simmons whipped Quinn Miners. Tavondre Sweat. And it's just tough when the running back that you use to pound the ball even more is very clearly shot in the legs. J.K. Dobbins, yeah, he had that big touchdown run. It was a simple call, though. It was a simple run. And the Broncos, ever since Sean Payton's come in here, they've always done the simple runs extremely well. And then whenever he gets a little bit creative with the run call, they fall flat on their face. And, and J.K. Dobbins, there was another run where they tried to run him outside, and it took him forever to get outside and even get back to the line of scrimmage. It was just rough. Really benefits. I mean, he's one of those guys that, you have to have the blocking up front. Now he can't create for himself, whereas with RJ Harvey, you have that little bit more of that explosive speed where he can create for himself. And he was kind of able to do that. It wasn't as cleanly blocked up front, and Harvey was able to explode through and, pick up the 50-yard chunk. And even on the next play, he still was a muddied front. He didn't pick up as many yards, but he still picked up a 5-yard gain on that. 55 yards on 2 runs, all right, that's a pretty good sign. He ended the day with only 6 runs. And it's just questionable about how much, especially, and this is going back to last year too, it's questionable how much Sean Payton just pounds the rock with these running backs that clearly can't run the ball as well anymore. Did it last year with Javonte Williams. And when you have other guys who are doing a little bit more, doing better than they are, and you're sticking with these guys because they can block, yet they're not being kept in to block a whole lot on first and second down, but you're still using them on first and second down. It just goes back to some of those, questionable things that Sean Payton does, and one of those kinks that you got to iron out with this offense, because you can't, if you're going to keep running, J.K. Dobbins, who on his 16 runs, I think 13 of them went for 1 yard gain or less. You just can't do that. You want to talk about a wasted run? There you go. That's a wasted down right there.
What's not a waste is Mike Gibbons coming in, supporting the show, 1999. Thank you so much, Mike. Hope you're doing well. Happy Victory Monday to you. Appreciate the heck out of you. Always coming in and supporting the show. Zach Phillips, good to see you. Morning. It's a W. Absolutely. I did see Peter Middleton's in here. Good to see you, Peter. Cam will be decent. This will be a decent win at the end of the season. I don't know if it'll be decent. I think the weaponry and the infrastructure in Tennessee is still not very good. But again, a win is a win. Will it be one of the Denver's top 3 wins this season? God, I hope not. But, you take it and you move on. You should never apologize for winning in the league. That's for damn sure. Some positives, Eric. I know we kind of talked about Bo Nix. Just didn't leave me feeling very confident about Bo Nix in this game. But what I did, one thing I think we will disagree on, I thought Courtland Sutton had a pretty decent game. Now, I'm putting that first Bo Nix interception, and people are arguing with me on Twitter too. I think we have some really strong Bo Nix apologists to the point where it's extreme bias. Could Sutton have attacked that football a little bit more? Yeah. That player pulled off their zone and attacked football. I don't even know if Sutton knew they were there. It wasn't like a man go moss that guy situation. So I put that one 70% on Bo Nix. What are you doing? Throwing that football in that situation. And 30% on Courtland. Go up stronger. Yes. But I put that mostly on Bo. I thought Sutton, though, had some pretty tough catches in this game. I can't remember. He had a really tough, second and third effort. It might have come up just short for a first down.
Yeah.
But one where it was 2 yards short and he busted through a few people and either got the first or almost got the first. Outside of, again, going back through the offensive line, maybe it is Garrett Bowles, but I thought Sutton was the best player the Broncos had on offense in this game. And what a beautiful touchdown also from Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton. I'd love to see some more of that this season.
Yeah, Sutton was fine. There were some issues on the edge blocking. There was a couple routes where he seemed to kind of half-ass it a little bit, which when you are very clearly the favorite guy for your quarterback, you can't exactly do. On the interception, I have a hard time seeing Courtland Sutton attack the ball more just because the way his body was moving, the momentum that he had and was carrying when he jumped up to get it makes it a little bit difficult. It was a little bit of a floater, and I think he was expecting it to get there quicker. And, Roger McCreary just came in and pulled off his own and, cut it short and undercut the route just ever so slightly to make the play. Great play by the defender. And so, I don't know, it's tough on that interception because, and this is a conversation that I've had before with multiple people with it, is when your body's moving one way, it's hard to sit there and in midair and jump as your body's still continuing to try to go forward to attack the ball a little bit more. And that's one of those things where it's just tough to do. So overall, he had a fine game. That touchdown was phenomenal. Just want to see that effort there every single snap from him, which has been an issue with him, his whole career. It's not something that I don't think is ever going to change. He uses a few reps every now and then as a little bit of a breather, which not ideal, but every receiver does it, I guess. But he was fine. I would say Adam Trotman actually ended up having a pretty solid game. He did pretty well as a blocker, really surprising. Lucas Kroll actually did well as well. I would say Garrett Bowles was the best offensive lineman at the very least. Probably one of the better offensive players in general. And so just on the offense, just a few guys that were, good or fine or decent or whatever. And it is not ideal when you only have, 3-4 guys that you could talk about on a positive note for the offense. But, we said it before, a win is a win. It was the first game. Things were a little bit slow. Things were a little bit slow for quite a few teams in the NFL. Some teams got off to a hot start. And it just seems to be the way of life still in the NFL, as teams still figure out how to figure things out with one less preseason game.
Yeah, Eric, you should read this one.
My guy, never fickle on the nickel, big pickle, Erick Trickle. It's good to see you back in here. It's been a long time since I've seen you on one of the shows. Glad to have you, Eclipse.
And Jeremy Sean's in here too. Just wanted to stop in and say good morning to the boys. Good to see you, Jeremy. Hope you're doing well. Always appreciate you. Excited to see everybody at the meet and greet. We got Coach Chris coming in and says our offensive line was horrible. Ben Powers, what the hell? Bo needs to settle down. I can count on one hand how many throws he actually set his feet. Yeah, man, me too. I think the team went into the game overly confident and fell flat. Wake up call? I hope so. I put it on Twitter, but they look like a team that was too busy sniffing their own farts over the offseason, and they showed up expecting, we just showed up, so we should win. Not how the league works, man. Not how the league works from the offense. So very bummed in the offensive line didn't play great. Bo Nix, I don't know if you've seen it so far, Eric. Again, it's a one-game sample size, so it's not always the most indicative, but he has the third worst EPA per play of any quarterback that's played so far. So 28th out of 30. The only quarterbacks who were worse are Bryce Young and Cam Ward. So, Broncos defense happened. Denver's defense on the EPA per play. And
Nick froze up on us. Not sure what he was going to say, but the defensive EPA, I'm sure, was great. And talking about something positive on the defense, Nick Bonito absolutely earned his contract. So in 2024, the highest single game count on pressures was 6.
I'm back.
Nick Bonito had 9 pressures, 3 more pressures in the league lead in a single game last year.
I did see that pressure rate. Dorrance Armstrong also had 9 this week, and Jeffrey Simmons had 8 yesterday. Somebody shared, I think Ryan Fowler shared it on Twitter. So not great from the interior offensive line for the Broncos on that one. When 40 pass attempts, though, I mean,
not just interior offensive line. Simmons also beat Mike McGlinchey for a pressure as well.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Good to see you, Coach Chris. Appreciate you so much. I did want to get into some positives in the last, 5-10 minutes that we're in here. You already mentioned it. Nick Bonito, what a game. I know that you and I we've been critical of Nick Bonito being a complete player, but if Denver's offense can put a little bit more pressure on early and we can be in a situation where it's an obvious drop back pass situation from the opposing offenses, Nick Bonito could lead the lead in sacks, I think, pretty easily. I mean, the 9 pressures, he looked so fast out of his stance in this one, just blowing by Dan Moore. Dan Moore didn't have a chance in a lot of it. So shout out to Nick Bonito. Cooper also had an awesome game, and Ellis. I mean, one of our preseason predictions was we're not going to know who Edge 1 is. And man, they were all awesome in this game. So really happy about the edge rushers. Next guy I want to shout out because I know that he's maybe it's one of my guys, because I feel like I see way too much slander on Twitter, and it's just like, get educated. It's like Riley Moss in this one. He had a heck of a game. He's going to get targeted, and there's going to be some times this season where he's going to give a big pass or a pass interference because teams are specifically going to scheme to target him down the field because they're going to be avoiding PS2, and it's just the ball's got to go somewhere. Moss had an unbelievable game. In phase, plays on the football. I know there's going to be some. I'm already preemptively upset about it. He's going to give up some plays or some penalties further on in the season. But what a game from Riley Moss. Looking healthy, playing great. He's a heck of a cornerback too. And happy that Denver has him. And we need to, stand up for him because, again, ball's going to go his way when you're playing opposite PS2. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you have PS2 locking down the top receiver, I mean, he didn't allow a single catch, and he was on Calvin Ridley for 27 of the 32 routes Calvin Ridley ran. Surtain did. So when you're playing opposite that, yeah, you're going to get targeted. And I don't care how good of a corner you are. If you get targeted, almost 100 times, like Riley Moss was, last year, I think he was targeted like almost 90 times, you're going to give up catches. You're going to give up plays. It's going to happen. You're going to get called for penalties. It's going to happen. And, Moss allowed some, but he made up for it. He had some really big plays. He had one absolutely phenomenal play working downhill as a run defender that, stopped the bleeding from some bad stuff up front and made a big play. He just had a really great game, and he was one of those guys who definitely stood out. And I would say he'd probably be like third or fourth best if I had to, rank them in terms of how well they did. Third or fourth best defender. Only ones that I would very clearly say were bigger and more impactful were Nick Benito and Justin Strnad. And on Nick Benito, the one big area that you and I have both hammered on is run defense and developing more as a pass rusher with more variety. Doesn't look like he's had a whole lot of variety to his game, but what he did was make sure that his speed, his burst, and his ability to predict the snap count improved even more. He predictably had a huge game against Dan Moore Jr., who is a terrible left tackle, despite the amount of money that the Titans paid him. Drew multiple holdings, and there were multiple other plays where he very easily could have gotten hit for holding. Nick Benito and Jonah Ellis both gave him issues. And as a run defender, I would say that he did show a little bit of improvement here. He did, I'm not sure what it's called by the Broncos, but I know Bill Kohler, the shoulder check, where he sits there and he drives his inside shoulder into the defender to keep them off so he can go make a play if the running back cuts it out. He did that multiple times, had 2 plays against the run, but it was him chasing down from the backside where he's using his speed and explosiveness. That's going to be his biggest impact as a run defender is that. But seeing him shoulder check to sit there and keep himself in positioning and keep the offensive lineman off of him, that was nice to see because that was a missing element. And when you're as explosive as he is, that is a good way to, set an edge.
Yeah, no doubt. Some final takeaways here, Eric. The Broncos really should have beaten the Titans pretty good. I disagree with the chat. I don't think that's a good team across the way. And to have Denver win a football game despite being -2 in the turnover differential and turning over the ball 4 times, and especially with where they were turning the football over to. I mean, that was should have been some points. Obviously, you had points come off the Bo Nix first interception. Can't believe he didn't have points off the Marvin Mims muff punt. I mean, they had the ball at the 30 or something, the 20, and then you get those back-to-back massive sacks to push them back. But Denver got kind of lucky in this one because, like, down to down, they dominated the Titans. But when you have the turnovers like Denver did, heck, I mean, can we even throw in the fourth downs as turnovers too? 0 for 2 on fourth down, I believe, off the top of my head. I can remember too. I can't remember them converting a fourth down. They lost a lot of areas that against a much more even opponent puts you in trouble. And this one shouldn't have been a 1-score game. I mean, I think I saw Sam Hoppin on Twitter. He releases this every week, the success rate, the net success rate of each team. And Denver had the largest margin. So that's a shout out to the defense. They did not give up down to down. They were pretty dominant against a overwhelmed Titans team. But Denver played with their food to some extent. And it was good enough to win this week. There's probably only 4 other opponents in the league that Denver could play as sloppily as they did on offense and still come away with a comfortable win.
Yeah, and do you know what the great equalizer is when you lose the turnover battle? Penalties. And then doesn't matter how many I shouldn't say that. It does matter how many turnovers you have. But when you have 13 penalties called against you for 130 some odd yards, 140 some odd yards, that kind of balances out with it, and it kept some Broncos drives alive. Some were good calls, some were bad calls, and the Broncos, it goes both ways. The Broncos had some good calls and they had some bad ones. Sherfield's second holding call was not holding, and I'm so tired of announcers and refs constantly, protruding misinformation about what is holding, but that's beside the point. So penalties were a big deal with it. This was an area where last year the Broncos struggled with. I mean, in all but 2 of their losses last year, the Broncos were penalized far more than the other team, and they had almost 200 yards more in those losses in penalties than, their opponents did combined. So it's rough to overcome penalties, and so penalties can balance out those. With the fourth down plays, they were 0-2. Obviously, that hurts. You mentioned it earlier, the one where T'Vondre Sweat absolutely blew it up in the middle on a Bo Nix sneak. And that leads two things I wanted to add about that earlier. One, what a great call by the Titans. They were actually set in the spread alignment where Sweat was actually lined up against Quinn Miners, I believe on the outside shade of Miners, in fact. And you hear Bo Nix, he yells, kill, 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 kill. And he starts his set hut 1, hut 2, and on hut 2 they close the gap. They, instead of being spread, they're now pinched, so they know what's coming, and they did their film work on it, and they absolutely baited Bo Nix into calling that. So I would because of that, I would like to see a fake sneak toss thrown in, just something to keep defenses a little bit more honest, and give your offense another option for it. If they're going to sit there and set up for a Bo Nix sneak on fourth down, because Denver did that Bo Nix sneak like 4 times up to that point already, throw in another element off of that to keep defenses honest.
And I'm sure we will see a wrinkle like that at some point. It could even be on that toss. Maybe it's Mims on a jet sweep or kind of the pre-snap motion. We'll see. But that was a good job by the Titans. And yeah, something we talked about this Denver offensive line. We harped about the defense maybe being regression candidates. And then I feel like at some point, maybe it was August, we're like, oh, maybe the offensive line, right? Maybe it's some of the system and Bo Nix and Sean Payton helping them out. But not a great game from the offensive line. Mike McGlinchey said so as much. Also gave credit to the defense and said that the offense was way too sloppy. Turned the ball over too many times, too many lulls, didn't convert enough on third downs. All above, we've got to get better. Offense and offensive line in general, very true. So with Denver's defense playing like it did, if we get this version of Jeremy Crawshaw, Denver's going to be in every game unless they are turning the ball over 4 times. And I did appreciate Bo Nix. He was calm, in his press conference, everything like that. He did take some blame though for the strip sack. Said I got to have 2 hands on the football. It's been a long time since he's had a strip sack, so that's something he'd been pretty good at, not taking sacks and not coughing up the football. Did in that case, not good, not great from the Broncos offense. Too many turnovers, too sloppy, but luckily the defense, special teams does enough to beat a very overwhelmed Titans overall team in this one. So again, was it the most dominating game? Are we giving A+ to every single player across the board? No. It does seem like Denver avoided major injury. We'll find out about Evan Ingram's calf. That'll be a bummer if he's out there for a bit, especially that'll be 2 of your 3 major off-season signings already missing chunks of time, which is not what you want. And I kind of talked about that this offseason. Also, like, what is it? Immovable force versus a unstoppable object with the signings they had and the injuries they had versus how good the Broncos have been with the keeping players off the injury report since Sean Payton got here. We'll see. But overall, just happy to have the win and ready to move on to Indianapolis, which should be a pretty good game. We'll talk a lot about that on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of that game. They looked surprisingly good. I think everybody was expecting a mess after the quarterback battle that was going on. One thing I will say, though, is that those wide receivers, their body language, their behavior on the field, vastly different from when Richardson was in. And that's helping a lot. They're giving more effort with Daniel Jones in, somebody who can, reliably throw the ball and, reliably allow them to try to go and make plays. Where instead of Richardson, who knows what kind of throw you're going to get your way. So can't wait to dig into that and break it down. I'm going to go over that game a little bit later today for breaking it down. But hey, as for the Broncos, again, we've said it multiple times. They won. That's where we stand. They had some good showings on defense, in particular, some things to still clean up. Wasn't all perfect. Watching some of those rotations, I wonder though how the defensive line personnel groupings, I wonder how much of that changed and was an issue that popped up because of the late injury to Malcolm Roach and then being put on injured reserve. And now that they're, past that, they can sit there and change things up and correct it with a little bit more time for the Colts. So There's some that can play into it. Offensively, a lot to work on. Ben Powers was awful. Luke Wattenberg was awful. Quinn Miners wasn't much better. Mike McGlinchey was, overall he was decent. Had some really bad moments. Got to get improvement from this offensive line. I think Luke Wattenberg and Ben Powers are definitely on borrowed time. I think it's inevitable that they're both gone after this season at this point. And, got to find some of those guys to step up. But some guys on offense who I wasn't expecting a good game from stepped up. Adam Trotman, Lucas Kroll. Got to get more out of the running game. But it was week 1. Again, with the one less preseason game, we've seen a lot of teams start the season a little bit uglier, show a lot of those wrinkles that need to be ironed out. And, despite my issues with Sean Payton with his play calling and some of the decision making, he's a good coach. He's a great coach. And I would expect a lot of these wrinkles to get ironed out or at least Band-Aids put on and a better showing going forward from this Broncos offense.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but I am curious if there'll be calls for Forsyth and Palczewski at some point here with left guard and center. But I didn't want to say hello to Patrick. Aloha. Great to see you, Patrick. Good to see you in here. I also saw our guy, Keith Brugman. Aloha with a cup of coconut roast from Lion Coffee. Appreciate you, Keith. And we're going to get on out of here. Shout out to our super chat folks in this one that coming in after that Broncos dub. Michael Ronquillo, Troy Boer. Of course, we got the great one, Mike Gibbons, Coach Chris. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for your contributions. And if you can't do that, make sure you become a member over on our MHH YouTube team. That helps us a heck of a lot. I'm not sure where you guys are ranking on the XP, but you get a lot of fun membership stuff, the exclusive content. I know we got Kelberman's Corner and all this good stuff, book club, et cetera, et cetera. Seasons here. Also, make sure you guys are following Eric and I on Twitter. Eric's at Erick Trickle. I'm at Nick Kendall, MHH. Follow us at Mile High Huddle. We're at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Eric, any final thoughts? Things we want to get off our chest? Again, we spoke our piece. I don't know. Not the best game from Bo Nix. Not the best game from the offensive line. Denver won this one. It was not as close as the score indicates. Defense looks awesome. Got time to figure some stuff out. And to win a game with a -2 turnover margin is indicative of a team that has a lot of room for growth to be much better still. So excited for the season still, all the same.
Yeah, and, not to harp on him too much more, but Sean Payton, get those plays in a little bit faster, man.
Yeah.
Like you were really, it didn't come into wasn't an issue, but having to waste that timeout early on because they didn't break the huddle till less than 10 seconds left, and Bo Nix wasn't able to make adjustments. They weren't able to get lined up. That's not great. It ended up not mattering because of how badly the Titans butchered the end of first half play calling, but it could have really came back to bite them in the butt. And against teams like, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Commanders, the Texans, the Chargers, the Bengals, you can't have those kinds of issues. You got to be able to give Bo Nix time to read the defense and make adjustments without having to rush through it. And basically you got to be breaking the huddle with pretty quickly. So Sean Payton's got to get that play calling in a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Man. Overall, it's good to get the dub. Appreciate everyone. We got to get out of here. We got things. I got to keep packing this house. But everyone have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your Bears Vikings tonight, I think, as well. We'll see if the Caleb Williams drama that's been out there this week gets another chapter. But appreciate everyone, and we'll start talking about Indy on Wednesday. But have a great one. Kindness and compassion. We'll see you later. Go Broncos.